And welcome to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast, presented by, CBB Analytics, I suppose, fellas. We'll get to the advertisement later. But first, hello. Hi, how are you? My name is Kai. I'm hosting episode number 359. It's June 25th. We're live on YouTube. If you're checking us out on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, please do check out the YouTube channel. You can see our lovely faces. I don't know, maybe it adds a little something to the podcast experience. You let us know. Matthew and Jim are with me. We're doing a mailbag episode today. We're very excited. We took to Twitter and to our Discord channel with Mr. Trilly Donovan, Burner Ball, for your questions. We've written them all down. We have answers for them all. And we're excited to talk about them. But first, hello, fellas. Matthew, how are you? Nice haircut. Looking good.
Yeah, just a trim. Nothing substantial, but looking great, Kai. Not as good as you. Probably a hair better than Jim, but I think you have an unfair advantage because you go to work and you look pretty and beautified every day with your very fancy corporate job. So, high bar in terms of attraction on this podcast, Jimbo.
Yeah, I'm going for the old pre-wedding haircut tomorrow, boys. I think Kai is as well. We got to look all nice for this weekend. We'll be celebrating some nuptials down in St. Louis area. So excited to spend some time with the boys, all dressed up. Not quite as fancy as Kai every day at work. We know he gets really tuxedo, black tie optional at his big boy job. But yeah, we're excited to dig into all the questions that we got from the loyal listeners.
We are excited indeed. And hey, follow us on the socials, if you will. Twitter, Instagram, 3MW_CBB is where you can find us. On our Twitter, we do have a link to our Discord with Mr. Trilly Donovan, the masked man himself, the master of recruiting news and coaching news and all that jazz, transfer portal news. It is $6 a month. We think it is a great investment for a college basketball fan, diehard or otherwise. We'll be releasing all of our previews this season through that channel. It'll be in some sort of Google Doc format. We are writing all 360 plus teams right now. We are hard at work currently. Also, lots of fun little channels, interactions, some futures talk, some board bet talk in the channels. We're going to definitely get into bets as we get into the season. It's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, please do check that out on Discord. If it looks a little intimidating at first, if you're not, it is very easy once you get the hang of it. If you have any questions on how to use it, please reach out to the Weave. We will help you out.
Yeah, I did sit and watch my dad sign up live in person. It was kind of a good test case for, not to age my father, but certainly not in the Gen Z demographic, Kai.
Yes.
He seemed to have no issues with it. But yeah, again, we understand it's different. It's different for us too, but we think it's intuitive enough. But if it's not, don't feel dumb. Ask a dumb question. We'll answer it for you. We'll help you.
Yeah, some cool stuff coming up on that channel, some AMAs. So we just did Keegan Brown, which was very interesting. I enjoyed reading some of his answers.
Who's Keegan Brown, Kai?
Analytics guy, correct, Jim?
Yep. Yeah, director of strategy and analytics for BYU this past year, worked for Mark Pope, has some interesting career paths to get there, kind of like talking GMing college teams and what that really goes into, and the fact
the
that
new roles evolving within college staff.
Yeah, just kind of the role in analytics and scouting and game planning and that kind of thing, and roster construction. But he could potentially be in an NBA front office at some point, maybe drafting for your NBA team. So get in there and read his perspective early. I believe he said undecided on his career move this upcoming season, despite all kinds of Kentucky fans trying to lobby him to come to Lexington with Mark Pope. He remained on the fence, neutral on that, which is fun to see.
Yeah, in addition to him, we had Matt Norlander in there, the guys from No Ceilings. We had Ken Pomeroy earlier. Kevin Sweeney's coming up from Sports Illustrated. We got Todd Kowalczyk, our first coach, coming in, coach of Toledo. That'll be a lot of fun. A lot of other surprises and fun guests coming.
Yeah, even the Dan Poneman AMA, which is like the first one that truly unleashed, which, I mean, all the NIL stuff that we don't have any good intel on and we sort of breeze over as we talk about it on this podcast. Ton of good insight as to how that world works now. And I think the most interesting thing people care about is like, how much money do we have? How much money do they have? How much money do they have? So he kind of leaks out some of that stuff. So yeah, just sort of a all-encompassing approach here of content.
Yes.
All angles.
Every single angle of college basketball. You can find it in the Burn Discord. So again, the link is on our Twitter handle. It's also in the description of this video. It will also be in the description of the podcast once that is posted. So with that, let's get into the show. Roots Roundup first, then a mailbag. Roots Roundup, take it away, Jim.
Oh, but before I do, Kai, before we talk Roots Roundup, before we talk news and notes, we got to give a shout out to CBB Analytics. Matthew, we just talked about Keegan Brown and his use of analytics data as he is game planning. We know that coaches use CBB Analytics over 25 staffs this past season. We use it constantly for our preview writing. And we think everybody else should use it too.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I was thinking about this today as I was using it robustly in some of my preview work. I'm up to number 3, by the way, for those of you counting at home. That's my 3rd preview written so far. Feels good to get started
The
before
weave's in the
July.
double digits now. We know that.
Look at us, baby. Come on. It's sort of CB Analytics. It's sort of a fusion between Synergy and KenPom. It has like all of the 4 factors, team level advanced stats that KenPom has in a very user-friendly, navigable site, but it also has a lot of the Synergy visual shot chart stuff. And I think the fusion of those two is what makes it so good. They have adjustments for strength of schedule, all kinds of conference level, quad 1, quad 2 slices. Again, super pertinent for diehard users, especially coaches trying to look at, evaluating players in the portal. Obviously now is kind of past that time, but for next season, trying to kind of build that understanding of who's on your team, who could be out there. It just kind of brings it all together, and that's why we endorse it. We don't sponsor many publications or just organizations on this podcast, but the ones that we do, we believe in very, very sincerely. And so that's it. Please use our lovely promo code WEAVE, $40 off a subscription when you sign up. That helps us and saves you money. A win-win. That is cbbanalytics.com. Jim?
Get on that. Check it out. No key headlines this week, fellas. To lead off with Roots Roundup, the NCAA did not make any drastic changes to the NCAA tournament yet. We know they're still meeting. The meeting we discussed last Thursday, hey, it's only been 5 days since we potted. So, no crazy earth-shaking moves so far in the sport. We're kind of happy to see that. However, in the recruiting world, the Illini got a boost. Will Riley, a 5-star in the class of 2025, both commits to Illinois and reclasses into the class of 2024. Kai, he is a big-time shot maker, long, skinny, lanky, can shoot over everybody. Definitely needs to add strength. That he's got that, like, okay, this guy's a reclassified player. We understand that maybe he's not quite physically ready yet, but the skill level just oozes out of him, and we know that Illinois fans are going to be excited to see him come to town.
Yes, I think we all agree. Too skinny right now. Not a huge impact player for this coming year, but a prospect for sure.
It's the dicey part of recruiting rankings is they're balancing pro upside and immediate college contributions. And those aren't always a straight line between, oh, he's ranked 10th, he's going to be the 10th best freshman. It does not always work that way. So digging into the context, that's something we try to do with our previews is get a little better idea of who these freshmen are, how much they're going to contribute. I just wrote Illinois actually today as we were discussing.
Nice.
And I don't think Riley's going to be in their top 7 players. That's what I'm going to say. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for Illinois. I just think they've got some other contributors that make a little more sense on the college stage now. The other recruiting bit to mention, Matthew, as international players continue to flow over from Europe and, of course, Australia and New Zealand, always an option as well. But Ruben Prey, a Portuguese big man, is headed to St. John's. Again, we're not going to mention like every single international guy because the pipeline is really opening as guys are willing to take some NIL money instead of a pro contract over there. But St. John's gets some athleticism up front. I believe I saw Rick Pitino say he now feels like he has out loud said, we have a much quicker lateral squad than last year. So just completely dunking on his own quote from press conferences. This is a mobile big man who can potentially offer some help off the bench. I don't think he's going to be like a ground shaker, earthquaker.
No.
Yeah, it looks raw, right, Kai? Yeah, Kai had the film. Kai had the scout here on Prey.
He's not going to play that. I'd be shocked.
Even Riley gave me raw, vibes, Jim. But then I saw Vicini endorsed him pretty heavily for Illinois, so I kind of swerved back into being more bullish on him. But yeah, I mean,
he
international.
He endorsed him as a talent. I don't think he endorsed him as
not as a ready now guy. Okay,
yeah, he said I like Kasparis more this year, which I wholeheartedly agree with. That's another thing. Some of these international guys, it's like, he's coming from Barcelona. Well, he played for the U19 and the second Barcelona team. Like they're not all playing like the adults, 26-year-old pros. And I wouldn't expect them to be. They'd probably be pro prospects and not college guys if they were. But it's just something to keep in mind as you're like reading, oh, he averaged 19, 4, and 5 in Europe. Well, he's playing like essentially high school teams over there. Those are high school stats in Europe. So you can't go overboard with some of those numbers. You got to contextualize who it's against and where they're playing.
Yeah, I showered a ton of praise over some guy SMU got as I wrote SMU's preview today. Averaged 14 in the Bosnia top league, Kai. So you tell me what that means to you, but I thought it was pretty impressive. But as Jim mentioned, all this stuff is big fat asterisk next to it.
And
Context is king.
rank the
Tough to
European
rank.
leagues. Is Bosnia and Herzegovina the
Top
number
30 league?
14 pro league over there? We'll find out. I don't know. Maybe he'll be a monster right away. Color me skeptical. In the class of 2025, Chris Beard secured a commitment from four-star power forward Tyus Jordan, headed to Ole Miss. Congrats, Chris Beard. Clearly still able to dig up some money. We discussed them last week on the portal winners. Just the sheer amount of guys they were able to bring back and add speaks to their NIL situation seemingly being a positive down in Oxford. In the transfer world, yeah, nothing exciting. The commitments are pretty much all dried up. Not a lot of big guys going to be committing. I think Arthur Kaluma's a relatively big name out there that people are starting to wonder if he's ever going to pick a team. There is, Matt, you wrote into our outline here, or maybe it was Kai. The NCAA is potentially shorting the portal window from 45 days down to 30. I think this makes sense. It basically delays the entry date. I don't think the end date moves. It is more for teams that are in postseason play, the NCAA tournament, or even the NIT, CBI. They don't need to be worrying about roster management and like, oh, you got to get in there and start recruiting guys out of the portal. Now there's going to be poaching, there's going to be back channels, et cetera, with all these guys. People know or have a general awareness of who's going to be in the portal, but this just makes it a little bit easier on teams that are actually having success in the postseason to focus on that rather than the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think like with the way the game's going, it feels it's going to be like the professional ranks where player evaluation is a non-stop thing, like all the way year round. But at least this sort of gives you a cushion if you're making a deep run in the tournament where you're not completely disadvantageous or at a disadvantage to your counterparts out there who lost and have sort of been getting an early jump at poaching guys in the portal. So how much this really changes, I don't know, but I do think it's just the obvious right move. And the fact that we don't have guys being tampered with or messed around with during deep tournament runs, second weekend runs, like let that season play out, right? Let's let the season that's currently existing have its heyday, and we can talk about the player movement stuff when it ends, right? The overlap bothers me. We don't need that.
Yeah, it's not quite the same thing, but like the NBA, like, oh, you can start negotiating with people at midnight on July 1st. And it's like, oh, somebody signed a contract at 12:01. Like, okay,
Really
yeah, you're
quick
going to tell me there
negotiation.
wasn't tampering going on there. I'm sure there'll be commitments immediately as the portal window opens with guys that have been tampered with, et cetera. It's fine. This does just at least give better optics, and you have to work to kind of get around this. It's not going to be 15 days of guys in the portal, legal, go for it, do whatever. It at least makes some sort of impediment for teams in that regard. Happy to see it. We like to see that.
And there's also coaches that were like very explicitly like, I'm not recruiting anyone until my season's over. And then there are other guys were like, yeah, I think I have to. I think if you're not doing it, you're at a disadvantage. So at least it sort of bridges that gap together, which is good.
Yeah, I think I remember Houston Millette committed to Alabama and they were like in the round of 32 still and ended up going to the Final Four. And it's like
Coach was very, yeah, I'm still getting guys right now. I know I'm still playing, but I'm looking to get guys for next year too.
Yep. Other random news and notes before we get to the mailbag. Oregon has got a new court design up there in Eugene. I am one of the few, the proud, the psychos that loved the old court, the deep in the woods theme. It was kind of tough to look at on a TV screen, but I love the uniqueness. There's just difference, and it made it something odd to watch. This one's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. Kai, there's more green to it. It's less kind of brown tree darkness circling the court, and they're leading into kind of that retro green. It's not the dark Oregon green. It's a little bit brighter. It is going to please people a lot more as they watch Oregon games.
Yes, I like the new court, Jim. Yeah, we love unique courts in college basketball in general, and I do like the old green, that retro green, as you mentioned. They should have done the Donald Duck logo on there. I think that would have been a nice touch.
I agree. That's a good throwback.
It's
simpler.
Very cool. Very cool.
I'm with you on that, Kyle.
Yes.
Yeah, I've always talked about how much I love the ones that have like a silhouette of the skyline. If it's a unique court, a la UCF with Disney World, or Chicago with the Chicago skyline, or even Virginia Tech has kind of got some of their campus stuff on there. And then also like FIU, something more crazy where there's a beach running down one side of the entire court and you feel like you're stepping in the water when you're shooting a corner three. It's fun. I embrace unique court designs a la the Boise blue turf in football. Terrence Shannon got his jersey in the rafters at Illinois.
Mhm.
Ty, I am proud of them for waiting until he was cleared of rape. That is good that they did not jump the gun on this one. I guess he got him to their first Elite Eight since I believe 2005. So maybe that's part of the, the legacy and the contributions he made there. But this was a tad quick. Typically, like the retirement jersey in the rafters is like an occasion 5 seasons later. Am I wrong?
Yeah, Illinois fans are quick to differentiate. His jersey's not retired, but it's going in the rafters still. I think it is quick, and there is a criteria Illinois has. So I think he checked a couple boxes of like awards.
Oh, it's an objective thing, not a subjective.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
that does help.
I think he checks some boxes. But to me, he doesn't feel like an Illinois all-time great. I think it's
he played more years at Texas Tech than at Illinois.
Yeah.
Like whatever. I just think like
I think you need to be a program like staple, right? Like 3 years, whatever.
Retiring jerseys is so inconsistently managed across schools. I just think it means so little to me in college basketball. I just really don't care. I've like Duke UNC have this whole debate where Duke fans make fun of UNC fans because they retire every jersey, and UNC fans like, well, we've had way better players than you, so we should have. And I just like don't care. And I think this Illinois thing is just exhibit number 1,000,002,000. That it's like, okay, yeah, really special year this year. I get it. I think he's a well-liked dude around the community. But like, I don't know, doesn't need the statue like a month later, does it?
I'm pretty on board with if you played more games at another school.
That's a good rule.
You got to do something really special to become like a figure. Like Dalton Connect, maybe. He played more games in Northern Colorado, but I don't know. I guess it's similar. Yeah, first team All-American. That does help. All right, whatever. If they have objective criteria and they've been doing that for years, I'll stop bullying Illinois fans. You win. Lastly, freshman Olivier Roux of Florida. This is just a preferred walk-on, so people are probably, going to go nuts about this. Oh, he's not even good. Whatever. He is 7'9", officially listed at 7'9" for the Gators. We've seen some of his clips from IMG in the past, and you will probably be quick to make the "how did Matt Painter miss on this guy" joke about Purdue's love of giants. But Matthew, he is legitimately this big, and I know he's not going to contribute right away, but there's a point where a guy's just big enough, and even if he is quote unquote just big, he is just huge, and that's enough to make an impact on basketball at times.
Yeah, I mean Taco Fall was the anchor of what I think a top 10 defense and then a top 30. I mean, just this sheer size. And I'm not saying he's going to be Taco Fall. I mean, he could be better than Taco Fall. Who knows? I don't project guys over 7'7". Not really.
Preferred walk-on, probably not better than Taco Fall. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But point being, yeah, Jim, at some point, the length and the size is just so like insanely overwhelming that it has to be an asset. I think to what degree? I don't know.
I
Stay healthy,
knock on wood.
Basketball
player ever in college. I think that's the significance. I'm pretty sure tallest ever.
Yeah, was somebody hit like
Taco was 7'7", 7'6"?
Simbular was like 7'5".
Yeah. Oh, great.
I think Taco was
nice.
7'6".
Yeah.
7'9". Oh yeah, the Bulars. 7'9" is insane.
Really
absolutely crazy. Quick little immediate reaction from the Discord here. Baylor has pulled out of the 2025 Maui Invitational to play in the Players Era Festival next year. That is the big NIL event that's going on where the winning team gets money. Obviously, that's a huge pitch in recruiting. Probably, hey, come here. You have a chance to play in this event where you win legitimate amounts of money, which is just wild because Maui has always been the standard bearer of MTE events, MTEs. That's redundant to say MTE events. I won't do that. But Maui's the best. If they're playing at Lahaina, there truly is no better environment to watch basketball. That's coming from somebody that's been there but has not been to a lot of other places, so grain of salt. But I loved it out there. It's incredible. You're on the island. I always love Thanksgiving week, feast week, watching Maui tip off Monday through Wednesday. Matt, is this just a temporary fad, or is Maui going to have to find a way to adjust and pay players the same way? Is this going to be like a trickle-down effect from Players Era to every other tournament?
I think there's a natural reaction adjustment coming. Like, why can't Maui and some of these bigger name MTEs get their lead sponsor to throw in $100,000 or $1 million pot for the winner. Like that's not going to compete with, I think, this pure NIL driven Vegas thing, but at least it closes the gap. You don't have late entrance of one of the premier, most beloved, pure things about November basketball, Kai, Thanksgiving, Feast Week basketball. I was in favor of this NIL thing in Vegas. It was fun. It was cute. It was exciting. It was different. But now it's infringing on fun MTE turf, coveted Maui turf. I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay with it.
I think they'll find a replacement. As long as we're getting good MTE matchups and good basketball, I don't care what format it's in, frankly.
Yeah, totally agree. I'm not worried about Maui itself, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be like every tournament has to come up with crazy money. There's also been a lot of speculation of the longevity on Players Era. I think like Goodman and Norlander have been like, we'll see if they can keep just pouring money into this without return. Kai, you're quite familiar. People in the world of money like to get a return on their money. They don't just throw it at stuff and light it on fire.
Yeah, I don't know what the benefit is for them.
Yeah, I don't. If they expect to get some crazy TV contract,
maybe,
yeah,
I don't know.
They're maybe investing with the hope that it blossoms into that. I think that's really wishful thinking that they would make a ton of money off that, especially if they're paying out what they're paying out. But we shall see. We will remain skeptical. But hey, if Baylor's pulling out and making that move, then it's obviously got some legitimacy to it. All right. Hey, that is it for Roots Roundup. Kai, I will kick it back to you. We've got a ton of mailbag questions, so let's get right to them.
We sure do, but they're good ones, and we're excited to spend some time answering them. Frankly, I just put them in the order that I found them, so apologies for not doing some cute little sections and compartmentalizing them.
Can we do the disc? Can we reward our premium subscribers, Kai?
Do you want
them or the people? I want them first. I want them first. I want everyone to get a ride on the roller coaster, but I want our most premium listeners to get the first ride.
I want to start Discord. I want to start Discord. I also want to start because the leadoff name is an all-timer.
From Dr. Crap.
Dr. Crap. That's so good.
You get to pick
you, Dr. Crap.
And we're off and running.
Yes, we'll start with the Discord questions here, yes. You get to pick one team this upcoming season to get unlimited access to practices, team meetings, etc. Who do you choose and why? Matthew Cox.
It's funny, I was just joking about Southern Miss in the Discord today, who has Andre Curbelo back and just is a fun off-the-floor character. That's probably not the right answer. Jim, last year for me it was UCLA because I thought Mick Cronin's press conference soapbox was the most fun thing to track. I just don't know. I was looking for something like that, like a kind of an evil tilted potential disaster where you see some drama behind the scenes. And I didn't actually find many candidates of that ilk. Like Illinois, maybe I know is one we've talked about. Like
UCF. It's UCF.
UCF, yeah.
There's like 4 criminals on the roster. Nolan Smith tried to get his previous coach fired. You just start there, and I'm content. Something's going to happen there.
Yeah, you're right. You're middle of Central Florida. No one wants to be in Central Florida. Yeah, okay. You're right. I like that.
Orlando. Hey, you got Disney World and stuff like that out there.
I'm not a hot take. I'm not an Orlando guy. I've been to Orlando like 20 times. I'm not an Orlando guy.
I have UCF.
Inland Florida.
A different answer. I was boring, Jim. I said Alabama or Houston. I want to see how Nate Oates runs practice, implements schemes. And Houston, I think outside of UConn, the best program right now in the country is probably Houston.
Kansas fans are going to skewer you.
I don't know, man. Yeah. I put Houston, right there with Kansas right now in terms of programs. I don't want to go to UConn. I'm tired of UConn shtick. Apologies to the Big East fans.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, I UCF was my first answer. My real answer for like somebody that actually has the potential to be good, but well-known, blow-up potential. Matt, it's IU. I think Indiana, with their rabid fan base, the expectations, but the skepticism of the coach. There's already some like oddness going on today with the Hoosier Hysteria podcast getting like in trouble with Woodson or clashing.
Yep.
There's just, and you also have like the Miles Rice story as a cancer survivor who's thriving in college basketball. I think IU would be an awesome one for this as somebody that has high potential, high notoriety, and also some real upside for drama.
I had Indiana and Villanova too, Jim. Nova, the same stuff as IU. I mean, much more like dire, but it does feel like a season on the brink for Villanova with Neptune there, not to steal the IU Yeah, there's some funny stuff about the Indiana. Quinn Buckner, who is, I believe, the chair of the board of directors, BFFs with Woody. A lot of people think that he simply just covered for Woody and was never actually given an earnest look as to Woody, should he be the coach going forward. So a lot of, I think, tensions brewing between Woody, internal admin folks, and disgruntled fans. But like at this point with the roster for next year, and put your hate to the side, IU fans. Like, let's see how it plays out, and then we can come back to the throw tomatoes at Woody if it goes sour again.
All right, next question. 52 Cooper. Guys, you are really looking forward to watching on teams that you're not looking forward to watching. So we want to see the players, not necessarily the teams. Well, Jim, this is my UCF answer. It's a whole mess. I'm here for the sick kicks I'm going to get from watching UCF coexist. Mahaney on UConn was one for me. Again, I'm just
not looking forward to watching UConn.
I'm over UConn. I'm over UConn. But I do want to watch Mahaney in the system. I think he's going to be awesome. Malik Mack on Georgetown.
He's on my list, Kai. He is also on my list.
And then my last one, which is probably the winner here, is Miles Rice on Indiana, Jim.
Okay, fair.
Wow.
Yeah, Indiana's lack of embracing transition or three-point shooting is probably a shaky one. I like Rice. I've also got TJ Power for Virginia, Nick Boyd for San Diego State.
I had him down too, baby.
Good
for you.
PJ Haggerty, another one of your boys at Memphis.
Yes.
And Ace Baldwin in Penn State, Jameer Watkins, Florida State, and two guys from a team that I somehow don't want to watch, even though I like two players, Eric Reynolds and Razier Fleming for St. Joe's. I think are both awesome, but that team makes me want to pull my hair out. So
good answers.
I have Haggerty for another answer, Jim. So 2 PJ Haggerty mentions coming in this episode. I wrote down Jason Kent and Julian Larry for Texas, who I love both of them. I'm just not a Texas guy. So maybe they'll turn me around and bring a jovial vibe to that team, Kai. But right now, I just don't like Texas.
Fair enough. From Kyle B. Give me a few my guys heading into this season, players whose game you love or who really impact winning, but aren't necessarily household names. Well, Matt had a whole section on my guys last season, so I will let Matt kick us off.
To be continued
with my guys.
Yes, the theme of that is generally fairly deep cut dudes, and I think as we'll go throughout the summer, we'll get a little more deeper into the minutia of the mid-major world, which is, I think, our specialty, right? It's what we enjoy. It's kind of what got us started in this thing. So I wrote down some West Coast mid-major dudes. I've already mentioned the UC Riverside backcourt a million times, but I'll do it for the 1 millionth and one time. Isaiah Moses and Barrington Hargis, just awesome dudes for Mike Macpayo on a team that basically gets zero PR clippings. I also wrote down Jaron Riley, who is a fun Aussie mop-headed point guard from the land down under, coming from the Northern Colorado fertile ground of talent. He's not going to be like a pro by any means. He's just a fun dude to watch play.
Yeah, he was at Stanford. He has like skater boy hair when you say mop.
Yes,
like it's very funny.
Like
to watch
I think he wears Vans and he has an Etnies pair off the court. I'm not quite sure. Two name brand drops enough for skating. Next shot. Kai, last one. Nazir Williams, Cornell. Love Cornell this season. New coach. Should still be a very strong squad, I think, kind of replicating the same way they played the last few years. And he's been a favorite of mine as sort of like the core bedrock of that Cornell surge that we've been so in love with the last few years. So shout out to Naz Williams and the Cornell Big Red Machine.
Hi, I feel like it didn't. There are a lot of questions, so I didn't get to give this one like the full hour deep dive that I wanted. Last year, I tweeted about Zadie Lowry from Marquette, who is like maybe even only going to be their 7th man this year, but I loved watching him. I think he's somebody that can continue to emerge for the Golden Eagles. DJ Thomas, the sophomore point guard for UNLV.
Yep.
Kind of snuck under the radar as like a reclass guy who was awesome last year for UNLV. I know we kind of talk about, especially point guards, those guys typically fail. But he's somebody that I love. And then you can go back to like Fleming for St. Joe's. I just was like, oh my God, they have an unbelievable 5-position defender. I did not think that was something that Billy Lang cultivated there at St. Joe's. So there's 3. I could probably come up with 10 if you give me another half hour.
Yeah, I wrote down a couple guys. I'll continue to sing the praises of Chase Hunter for Clemson. I think he's so important to this team. Numbers are not going to jump off the page, but I think he really impacts winning. I think he's going to be good in his, I believe, 5th year for them running the offense. I'm going to say Frankie Fiddler from Michigan State.
Fiddler on the roof.
I hope he succeeds. He was very good at Omaha. Whether he translates, not sure. Ryan Conwell for Xavier. That might be a little bit more of a household name, kind of, but I think he's going to be awesome. Like, maybe pushing third-team All-American awesome. I'm kind of going to bat for him.
Wow, he found his way into a couple other ansers for me.
Yeah, I think he's going to be freaking good.
I have 3 Xavier guys mentioned in 3 different answers. I think I like Xavier this year.
And then, hey, Vanderbilt, Jason Edwards.
Look at you.
Yes, that guy is awesome. You're going to love him. You're not going to love Hogard, but you're going to love Jason Edwards. Okay.
I had him for another answer. So, yeah, there's some overlap here in player picking, but I had Edwards written down. Okay, good for you.
Next question, Brew City 77. In the past decade, we've seen programs like Villanova, Virginia, Baylor, Gonzaga, Purdue, and Houston go from mediocre to good programs, consistently elite. What are a few programs now that aren't perceived as elite, but could become perennial Final Four national title contenders in the next 10 years? Jim, tough question. Did you come up with any?
I do. I have 3 and then 2 kind of off the wall answers. First one, if Alabama doesn't count yet, Alabama count.
First one I wrote down.
They're one that absolutely should belong there. They might count by this point based on going to the Final Four. Marquette. I know this is Brew City is a Marquette proposer of the question, but they follow the Houston and Purdue kind of internal development sort of track. They're not scooping random guys up. It seems like they won't have as much volatility year to year because of that. Should be relatively consistent, and we know they've got money. Marquette has a high basketball budget, so that's one that I also said I think Texas Tech can get there.
I did too. I wrote down Tech as well.
Okay, McCaslin plus some good NIL money. I just believe so much in McCaslin as a coach. BYU, it's a little bit wait and see on Young as a coach, but it sounds like they just have nearly unlimited money now based on some of the discussions in Burner. They offered one of the international guys $2.5 million, and he turned it down. But that was crazy to me. You ready for my last one, boys? This one's the real off the wall. Grand Canyon.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Stepping up to the WCC, they could get into the perennial tournament team like St. Mary's. They could maybe keep rising up to not quite Gonzaga level, but we know they got money. We know they got the brand. They have an insane fan base. I think Grand Canyon could really ascend as we go through the next decade.
Yeah, Grand Canyon could just break the entire model of what's possible just because they're so unique and with all the advantages they have. Jim, I wrote down 3 teams, Bama, Texas Tech, and I think we have to mention Iowa State. I sort of feel like if you're an Iowa State fan out there, you're tired of everyone just kind of glossing over you the last few years, as awesome as you've been for the most part. I don't know, Kat, that's too easy of an answer, but I do think this is a pretty narrow hole to thread, like perennial Final Four contenders that are going to emerge. I mean, the pool's not very big, so I think Iowa State is probably in that ilk with how good Coach Otts has been and with how consistent they've been and how strongly funded and invested that program is.
I had Iowa State as well. I had Alabama on there. Dark horse, Cincinnati. I
had Cincy and I erased it.
I really like what Wes Miller's done this season in the portal, bringing guys back. I think they're pretty well funded. I did a question mark on BYU. If they start getting a lot of funding and if Kevin Young is the real deal. And then a little bit St. John's. Why not? St. John's. If Rick Pitino gets something going here this year and beyond, it's possible. And then also Auburn and Tennessee are 2 I threw in there. I'm not sure if they're already arrived as elite programs, but 2 programs I think that can become, if they're not already, Final Four contenders every single year over the next decade or so.
Yeah, you could put half the SEC in at least, maybe not the legit candidate pool, but the fringe in 5 years, we could then talk about them seriously as a legit candidate pool with all the momentum, the big mo they have in the NL world.
All right, next question. From Fryer, name a few candidates to make the Connect-like leap this year. Matthew, you can start.
Dalton Connect. We all saw that one coming last season. I went real easy, Jim, for my first answer. St. Thomas, guy from Northern Colorado, who is a very, very talented offensive player, can score in a variety of ways. More of a forward hybrid wingy, not like his guard, dribble penetration heavy, and obviously can't shoot from 40 feet at a blink of an eye like Connect. But St. Thomas, USC, I went with my guy Duke Miles at OU. Just
Oh, I
think,
thought I was gonna be under the radar and
no,
steal that one
Jam,
from
come
you.
on.
Damn
No,
it.
that's too obvious. Moser's track record with shot making guards, mid major guards. And I think Miles, if healthy, is going to be a fit like a glove. Bowen Bourne, Colorado State. Awesome at Northern Iowa when healthy. When healthy, I think he can thrive in that system. And I think he has like real crazy upside because he's not like athletic like Connect, but he is much more athletic than people realize, which was sort of why people slept on Connect coming into this year. Last name, another Xavier mentioned, Kai. I think we'll get to a lot of Xavier names. Dante Maddox. I know you guys like
Wrong.
Conwell, and
It's the
he's
wrong
awesome.
Xavier name.
I think Maddox is my guy. I think the point is I love them both, but I think Maddox is more my guy than Conwell. I think Maddox rocks.
I think Maddox is more your guy, but he's not a. I think Conwell can be like a pro level scorer, and that's he was the first name I wrote here if he counts. I know he's already on a top 40 Ken Palm team, so maybe it doesn't quite count as making a Connect-esque leap, but he is going from a mid-major to a power conference, so I did put Conwell. Chaz Lanier also, I think a lot of people are just hoping that it will be the repeat at Tennessee, and there's a chance he gets a billion shots because they don't have a ton of scorers or self-creators. I think they've got a lot of play finishers, not a lot of play starters on that team. Duke Miles, as Matt said, at Oklahoma, I think is a good candidate. And then BJ Freeman down at Arizona State. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him there. He's a big time talent. They have you in the past had that guard you reputation with Trey Holder and Shannon Evans, I believe is the name. So potentially down there in Phoenix or Tempe, BJ Freeman's my other name. Kai, what about you?
Yeah, I said first of all, hope my static is done. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, it sounds good.
Fellas.
Nice,
sounds crisp now. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what to do. Hot take: it's not going to be Chaz Lanier. Yeah, Tennessee fans take that.
Yeah.
Of course.
Good mention though. We should.
Of course,
Smart of us to
Fiddler.
mention.
I don't think it'll be Fiddler, but I mentioned him. Ryan Conwell, Jim. I wrote down. Matt, get on board, man. This guy is the real deal. If you would have come,
No,
to
I'm
Indiana State
on
with
board.
us,
I'm on board. I know you're.
not.
I didn't see him. I'm on board. I just think Maddox is getting under discussed. I think Maddox slaps.
Terrence Edwards at Louisville from James Madison, possibly. And again, I wrote down Jason Edwards at Vanderbilt, and then Tucker DeVries.
I kind of like that one. I kind of like Jason Edwards.
I don't know if Tucker DeVries counts. Again, Drake was pretty good, but I think he's an all Big 12 player under his dad once again.
And then I would like to close this question by saying no one is going to do what Connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Trilly, favorite singular pickup of the portal. How about Jim? What do you got?
I'm ruling out guys that are following their coach, Robbie Avila, Tucker DeVries, Great Osabor. That just feels unfair. I'm staying right at the top of the portal, the cream of the crop. I think Kadari Richmond to St. John's is a perfect fit. Desperately needed more defenders. Richmond is lanky, long. We've been kind of in love with his defensive upside ever since he was at Syracuse, and he had to sort of figure out some focus things leaving the zone. But now he can be sort of the primary offensive option. Davon Smith's going to have the ball in his hands a lot too. Could be some odd work offensively because they don't have a ton of shooting, but I think Richmond's just a perfect Patino player, head of the snake for their defense that could be like top 5 good this year.
Matthew.
I went JT Toppin. I think that's a little bit of a
I like it.
Kind of a reach, but Texas Tech last season was just they couldn't really defend or rebound, and they lost the sort of physicality element that had made McCausland so successful. Still, they were very successful for a million other reasons, as great coaches do. They adapted to more of a shooting-friendly, offensive-first approach. Toppin just gives them like a bedrock maniac defender with a ton of upside himself on offense, which he kind of flashed at times last year. So I think that's going to go very splendidly for the Red Raiders.
Yeah, I think Jim hit it on the head. I think Richmond St. John's was, I think, the
nice.
best pickup. Hey, Dylan Mitchell, we mentioned Cincinnati needed one piece, I think, and Dylan Mitchell really fit the bill from Texas. I like Matt's dude, Miles Rice in Indiana. I think they really needed a guy like him to come in. And then I'm going to say one more time, Ryan Conwell. I'm going to go to bat for Ryan Conwell at Xavier.
Yeah, I love it. He's our guy. He's one of our guys.
Conwell. This is Ryan Conwell's season. Okay.
Jim, I had Haggerty here. I also had Chris Youngblood for Bama here.
Yeah, I think Trilly is trying to tempt us into saying Big Cliff. A lot of people love Big Cliff to Alabama. I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it. It fixes some of what they had wrong last year, but it's not one of my favorite things.
Breakfast ball. Who is your favorite coaching tree? I did not dig into this one very deep, Matthew. I did kind of cop out and just do Randy Bennett, Kyle Smith.
Yeah,
Golden.
did too.
Is that who you
Okay.
did as well?
No, it's
Yeah.
not. Kai, I referenced an article from 2018 on the 3-man-weave.com
Good.
website
I should
written
have
by
looked at that.
yourself. Yeah. I like your pick, but I went to Huggy Bear tree with Cronin, Brad Underwood, Frank Martin, Jared Calhoun, Andy
Calhoun.
Kennedy is in
Yep.
there. A lot of those guys are basically everybody but Cronin is an awesome dude to talk to. Very fun with media and also very successful. So I went with old Huggy Bear. As long as he's not driving drunk, he's kind of great himself.
Matt, you said the Bennett tree.
Yeah, I would Bennett. Actually, my first the inception was the Kyle Smith tree, and then obviously comes from Bennett. You have Aaron Gannett, Hawaii, who's just a lovable dude, been there for a while. Yeah, been fairly successful. Just a bunch of steady eddies, smart, analytically, data, money ball driven dudes. So
You
Is
didn't say, did
McHale
you
part
say,
of that? Yeah.
yeah, he was on the San Francisco staff for a year at least, I think.
Mike Magpie, Mikey Magpies, we call
I
him.
was
Yeah,
gonna say if
Magpie was
Matt
part of
goes
that too.
without saying him,
Have
I'd
to say
be
him.
stunned.
I know I'm gonna wear that name out all off season. Sorry, but yeah, that pretty good staff with over him at Columbia, Golden, Smith, before they all
Even
went to bigger and better things.
You can put Gerlson in there
Yeah,
too.
Gropson, exactly. He was there. That's right. Yep.
All right, let's keep rolling. Matt, 8299. What school switching power conferences will have the hardest transitions switching to the new conference for the next couple of seasons? Could be style of play, could be NIL, could be anything. Matthew, I said Stanford to the ACC. I'm not sure they have the NIL. Also, kind of weird geographical stuff. And then Colorado and Utah to the Big 12. I think they'll be fine at home. I think it's kind of the same thing, Matt. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually wrote down SMU initially, but then I was like, no, SMU's got just a boatload of money. And then I read an article about Enfield talking about how they have like this really, whether it's BS or not, like this real geographical advantage with recruiting against teams in their conference that aren't in Texas. Because if you think about the ACC now, it's like East Coast teams, the two random West Coast teams, a few Middle West ish, and then you have SMU. I settled on Cal actually, so I'm going to go with the opposite end of the NorCal rivalry with Stanford. I just think Cal's a little bit less of Stanford just has a better brand, I think, positionally than Cal does. That'll, I think, maybe help them. But I think both those answers are good answers.
I put both Stanford and Cal. Colorado's
Yeah.
NIL seems awful, so that seems like a problem.
That one's weird too.
And then he put style of play, so I decided to go for one of those. USC and Musselman in the Big Ten feels gross, feels wrong. Like Mick Cronin's a Big Ten coach. I do not think Muss is a Big Ten coach.
Yeah, that I agree with.
Book says if there was an all NBA defensive team equivalent in college basketball, which by the way there should be, who do you think would be on it at the end of the upcoming season? Jim.
All right, my 5 I went with, there's a couple guys I had to apologize to, but the 5 I went with first team, Kalkbrenner, Janai Broom, Cooper Flagg, who I think is going to be like otherworldly defensively, Taman Lipsey, and then pick your Houston guy is my 5th one. It's probably JB or Francis. I think ultimately Tugler is like the most freak defender, but he might not play enough. So JB or Francis. I'm not too worried about positions for an all defensive team. I can't remember if the NBA cares about it, but Matt, I'll let you answer before I give my apologies to names.
Yeah, I had Kalk, Broom, Lipsey, insert Houston player. I was a Francis, and I guess Tugler's probably the more like he probably has more of like the highlight reel NBA draft love next year with I think how explosive he is.
But he's still not starting, so it's hard to put him up.
Right, exactly. And then I put DeJuan Harris Kai as sort of like an honorary achievement award, but I wonder if that's stale a little bit. I didn't watch every Kansas game last year. I don't know if he was as good defensively. And I think there's other guys out there who just I don't know, are more terrorizing on the ball defenders if you're trying to pick like a guard or like a wing. Like I couldn't think of any like 3-and-D like devastating wing defenders in college. Who am I missing? There's got to be obvious ones I'm just completely blanking on. Cooper Flagg is probably good. Dylan Mitchell, yep, totally.
The names I had: Dylan Mitchell, Kadari Richmond. I think is going to be like all defensive kind of level. Zakai Ziegler and Akpara, kind of the bookends for the Tennessee defense, are going to be great. Big Cliff, Matt, your boy Jawan Gary, I think is pretty big time shutdown wing. Yep. And then Cameron Matthews, Mississippi State defends everybody.
As well, for sure. That's actually the right answer. I saw Jaden Bradley, who I love. I keep forgetting is a really good defender too. I don't know if he's like all the way that good, but he's I think in that conversation for me.
We have mentioned all the players I have mentioned on my sheet, so you move on.
Good job, everybody.
Nice.
Team effort.
OP, which coach in college basketball are you most interested in seeing how they perform this year and why? Matthew, do you have an answer?
The answer is Steve Peichel. Just a fun,
Ooh, I like that
hype,
answer.
just a ton of buzz around the team. Like a program that should not have the talent that they have, they do. It's an easy program to root for, I guess, as like I mean, I know I'm technically an Indiana fan, but Rutgers is easy to root for. And it's a very different team than what he's had. So I want to see how he responds in a year where he has what feels like a ton of pressure, even though he probably, realistically should have at least a decade's worth of goodwill, even if he like falls flat this year. But still, that's a fun one to watch this year. Michael at Rutgers.
Dusty May's up there for me, just like
Yeah, second
transitioning
for me.
into big time Big Ten with a roster basically completely turned over. At least he has one guy going with him in Golden. Matt, it's also, I think Shire has a fairly massive year. That roster is loaded. Every Duke
Yeah,
fan
it
is
is.
like, oh my God, we're so good at every position. We're too deep at every position. We have everything you could ever want: shot blocking, rim protection, same thing, shooting, creation, number one pick. They got to be really good. They can't just be like run of the mill, like ninth in the country. They got to be awesome next year. I think people are going to be a little upset.
I wrote down Dusty May. I wrote down Shire for that reason, Jim. I wrote down our dude Dennis Gates because we went to Mizzou.
You can't be 0-19.
I also wrote down Kim English. So Providence fans can either chirp at me or hush. We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out.
Yeah.
Ed Cooley made my honorable mention list as well at Georgetown. I just think he for all that transpired with that. You think it's gonna be bad? Yeah, I mean, I kind of gut tells me yes, but I don't think it. I mean, it's got to at least be good, like competitive, solid, close to 500 in Big East play.
No.
Right?
What would you call last year?
I would call last year a failure, but I think you had the first year excuse, like, oh, first year we played lots of freshmen. It was weird, like, so no one really cares that much. But this year you can't. You got to go forward this year, and how far forward they step will be interesting. Yeah, they were kind of young. Played the Rowan, what's his name?
Yeah, he's a redshirt freshman. I don't know. Still.
Anyways, I don't like talking about Georgia. Flower Fury just got into Georgia State for grad school. Congratulations. Getting ready to follow them closer. Any insight on their team this year? Are we hopeful about Jonas Hayes? I don't think Jonas Hayes has done very well so far. I know he's only had 2 years, but he's underachieved. He's definitely played below my power rating 2 straight years, and I think Ken Pom would say the same thing. And I think he's had decent talent. Jim, maybe year 3 is a turning point. Something clearly went right at Xavier when he made the NIT run, but so far,
yeah, basically hit the reset button on the roster. They've got like 1.2 guys back from the team last year, and then got a ton of new people out of the portal. They were a horrific shooting team 2 years ago, got a little better last year. And I think maybe that's part of it for him, is he's like, wow, I need to find actual offensive talent, and debatable if was able to do that. Yeah, the run at X is like the reason to be optimistic, but Matt, I don't think we've seen a lot since then. I mean, Rob Lanier won here. Ron Hunter obviously won here. He wins everywhere.
Yep.
So it's going to be a time where, hey, you got to find that same, not the same level of success, but at least some success. And he hasn't really had.
Right. I think it used to be considered a tough job, like it's city commuter school, but like I think you flip that on its head. It's like, it's Atlanta, and people love Atlanta. They got a ton of funding coming in. I know Troy said they're building a brand new stadium. People are excited about that. I think football and base, like as an overall athletic program, they have some momentum. Hayes has some momentum behind him. I'm with Kai though. I just don't think he's a great coach. I mean, basically all he's done that's impressed me was the 6 games post Travis Steele thing. Yeah, bah humbug.
Illinois 231 says, are there any stats that you guys find meaningless, whether traditional or advanced? Matthew, I did respond a little bit in the Discord. Announcers every single game quote raw points per game and points per game allowed for teams. It's the most useless stat. There's no context to it. It completely ignores tempo, mainly, and then, of course, competition as well. So you'll always see, especially the mid-major level, this team leads the country in points per game. It's like, oh, they're the best offense in the country. No, they're not. They're not indeed. So, Matt, what was your stats you find meaningless?
Raw rebounding numbers. I don't like when people say, oh, we out rebounded our opponent 49-40. Like, completely removes context of how crappy or great you shot or your opponent shot. Offensive rebounds are not created equal to defensive rebounds. I think it's a wildly oversighted stat that just has a ton of just like, okay, you can have 10 more rebounds than your opponent, but they shot 20 more time or 20 less time. Like, I don't, you know what I mean, Jim? It's just a lot of noise in that one.
Yeah, it's kind of in part and parcel with what Kai's saying is like rate stats matter more than raw total number
Right.
stats. So that the one thing I want to add here is anytime someone says a player is a good defender and cites only steals per game, I want to I want to lose my mind. That does not make you a good defender. It makes you a gambler. It makes you have decent instincts. I don't know if you can keep the dribble in front of you. I don't know if you rotate well off the ball, and there's not really a stat for that. So, yeah, steals per game is not
Demoy
nowhere
Hodge.
near an end all catch all as a defender. Yeah, he won
Demoy
Defensive
Hodge.
Player of the Year in the Horizon, Matt. So he was at least a good defender, but
He
steals
was.
weren't
He
why.
was good.
Yeah.
Okay, zip them up. Not so much a mailbag question, but thoughts on Tyler Johnson at Wake. He went back and watched some of his tape. He seems like a guy that could really pop under Forbes. Well, Jim, we know the track record at Wake. The track record says he'll be a star and an all-ACC player. What do you think?
Yeah, we joked about it in our ACC preview last year. Like, who's the point guard transfer that's going to be a stud under Forbes? Well, it's probably going to be him. He's one of the few Louisville guys that passes the eye test or passed the eye test last year. Yeah, I have very, very high hopes. Maybe he kind of gets brought along slowly next to Salas this year, but by the time he's a junior, I think he's going to be a monster. Matt, you love him.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was distracted. No, I think we've already like the entire Trilly Discord is a shareholder in the Tyler breakout. I mean, I just think we're all on board with him being awesome. Just a better situation, clear talent. Didn't even get a chance to really showcase his skills until late last year, and his role never made sense. Yeah, he's gonna be good.
Okay, let's talk TCU. Mr. Nightlight, would y'all, Mr. Texas here, have put TCU's transfer class as a winner or a loser? Yeah, I don't think we talked about TCU in the transfer winner loser. I did write this preview recently. A net win, Matthew, I suppose, but it's kind of weird. Frankie Collins.
I agree. I put small winner.
I like
put
Collins,
small winner.
but he's inefficient. He's never had no rating over 100 in his career. Reynolds, I like him, but he's really bad against tier A plus B. Like in like a 19-game sample size, it's an 85-ish O rating. White's pretty good. Wenzel's catch and shoot on bad Wyoming teams. And Bashan Alette was kicked off Old Dominion. So it's a very kind of weird group, Matt, coming in.
It feels ragtaggy and like kind of patchworky, especially after 2 years where they had a pretty clear identity, like a bunch of long, rangy wings that were going to get up and down in transition. They had like, good, reliable lead guard, I'd say lead creator. There's certainly question marks in both of those domains this year. And maybe they're trying to do stuff a little bit different, but I just sort of like what Dixon had going. It's hard to just say, find guys just like Jacoby Coles and Micah Peavy and
that's part of it. They lost those guys.
They lost them. So I was hoping I want Dixon just to go after that recipe again, but it's just not. That's harder. That's easier said than done. I think he's going to have to adapt with the guys that he picked up.
Yeah, they didn't bring in much physicality at all. That concerns me. I think Peavy's like my favorite guy on Georgetown besides Mac, and Coles is going to be rock solid for Grand Canyon. And then they brought in a bunch of, like Kai said, there's questions. They're thin or they haven't played the competition level. So I put neutral. I'm kind of neutral on TCU's transfer activity.
From Pat, if you could pick one player, former player, to complement any given top 25 roster, who would it be and why? Jim.
I don't know if it has to be from the same school. So I started with Anthony Davis on Gonzaga because they need a shot blocker and he's the best one of all time. And I said, if it has to be from the same school, I'm giving them Chet back because I think Gonzaga has everything but the
Chet,
true rim protection. Yep.
Matt, I put Mike Dom to anybody. You can put Mike Dom in it.
Okay. Just for fun. Yeah.
They could use him.
I was going to put Jimmer Fredette on like Houston, which makes no sense at all. But I think it should be fun to watch Jimmer Fredette shoot 40-footers and then watch Houston play stifling defense on the other end. Maybe Jimmer
awesome
gets better at defense.
Jimmer, take a three every possession.
Every time you want.
We'll probably get the rebound.
You'll guard the worst offensive player on the other team, and we'll probably be able to carry the weight without you.
Okay, and finally, the last one in the Discord, then we'll head to Twitter. In honor of the NBA draft, can I get a couple sleeper college guys who entered this year that you think could excel at the next level? Jim, I'm not an NBA draft expert here. I wrote down some names, but what did you write down?
Well, if Matt's an expert, I kind of want to hear from him first.
Matt.
I'm not going to. I just feel like I'm watching all these guys in the finals and the deep playoff runs. Like, I feel like we all were like, those guys can be pretty good in the NBA, right? Like, surely evaluating talent's that simple. So assuming it is that easy, Kai, here are the obvious winners. Devin Carter, who's now like a top 6 pick.
Okay,
so it's like
you said, it's sleeper college guys. He's a lottery pick.
I wrote these down before I realized how much some of the draft boards have changed.
I included every college guy too. So Yeah,
Devin
I agree with
Carter,
that
Bub
part.
Carrington, who's now fringe lotto as well. I think Bub Carrington's going to be great. And then my fringy guys are Jalen Wells, Washington State, Cam
Echo that one.
Christie, Minnesota, and then Isaiah Crawford, Louisiana Tech. Please stay healthy, but he's
The
going to be
first two
good.
names I have down are Isaiah Crawford and Jalen Wells. So Matt and I have similar eyes for talent. I also think Dylan Jones scaled down. He had to be like a 40% usage guy for a mid-major team. I think scaled down, he can actually play a role. I think people are dicey on that. And then my super sleeper way off the board that I actually kind of think can be a real NBA contributor is Malavi Leons from Bradley,
Yes.
two-time defensive player of the year in their league, hyper efficient offensive player who's kind of the threes coming along. He's 6'9" and lanky and a terrific multi-positional defender. I think he could settle in somewhere. He's like not even in people's top 75s.
Kind of a late bloomer guy too, right? The JUCO dude, or just was he just
Yeah, and he's
international?
foreign, like so. Yeah,
Yeah,
international, and I think 1 year at JUCO.
I put the hot name, Jonathan Mobo. I think he's
great.
going to
Yeah,
be pretty good somewhere. Terrence Shannon's too low on boards. I think he's awesome. And I think it's really weird Isaiah Collier is so low. Outside of the top 20 I've seen, the guy was the number one recruit in the country out of high school, and he dealt with some injuries. I think I would
yeah.
probably take a swing over a
And was in
couple of
an
guys I've seen.
awful team situation too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But anyways, okay. As I close my mailbag, let's go up to the Twitter questions, guys. And there are more Twitter questions. We can have a little pace with these, I suppose. Not to discount
Tempo.
Twitter, of course, but let's bump them out. West Pine Bills, what do you think will be the next analytical inefficiency that is exploited by smart coaches that eventually leads to mainstream adoption, i.e., the next prioritize layups and threes? For me, Matt, it's fouling. Fouling bad free throw shooters. Fouling when you have a disadvantage in numbers running back on the court.
Situational fouling. Yeah,
I.e., figuring out, cracking the code for sure on when to foul up at three. That type of stuff. Fouling is the next frontier for me.
yeah. I think player specific fouling in situations that aren't obvious is definitely where teams can steal an extra half point a game. Not everyone's figured that out yet. I wrote down, which is maybe an antiquated answer, like posting up guards, inverted offenses. Jim, we've talked about this before. Seems like some teams have started to do it, but it hasn't quite had major adoption. Um, I also just wrote down the mid-range jumper. I feel like at some point, with how obsessed everyone is with threes and layups and how every defense is drop coverage, trying to seduce you into at some point, mid-range jumpers will be like the most open shot that you've ever taken in your entire life. And there actually might be some inefficiency to guys that can make them at a high rate when they have butt naked step in uncontested 15 footers, maybe 5 years from now.
Yeah, it's the math on that still is
The
like
math's
even
tough. I
even
know.
the butt naked ones are only like 48%, and that's still less than a point per possession, et cetera, et cetera. I put running more, and I think somebody like Todd Golden's really leaned into it. Like the worst transition possession is better than the best half court possession. So I think some coaches, and I talked to a few in the mid major ranks. I think Brooks Savage from ETSU cited this. A couple coaches, like I think Bucky McMillan was like, yeah, our defensive numbers don't look that good, but because we play so many possessions in transition, our offense looks good, our defense looks bad. I think coaches are going to start leaning into that a little more because the pace just if you run, you have a much better chance of scoring.
Carl Lyles, the Big South. We did not talk about the Big South in the transfer portal. He says High Point clearly has the NIL money. Appreciate your thoughts on the general transfer scene in the Big South. Jim, for me, High Point stood head and shoulders above everybody else in the league. Winthrop didn't really need a lot of guys, so I kind of put them as a neutral. But yeah, High Point looks pretty set up for the next few years.
Yeah, there's a chance High Point has like the 6 best players in the league. Like there's a chance DeMarion Williams comes off the bench and he was a 15-point a game guy in this league 2 years ago before being on Texas Tech for 2 years. So like they could be just ridiculously loaded, and that's despite losing Duke Miles. I think Radford's a winner. Longwood is a winner.
Agreed.
Asheville I called winner because of who they kept and then also who they brought in.
Agreed.
Presbyterian clear loser. Sorry, Marty Richter, but I think USC Upstate's a pretty big loser as well.
Upstate might have been the biggest loser for me, Jim, in the Big South. Yes.
Yep.
Longwood?
Winner.
Yeah,
Griff?
yeah, winner for sure.
Winner. Okay, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Big South overall, decent shape. Like, look at the rosters.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Yeah. Kept a lot of dudes, brought in some good dudes. I mean, harried by the heavy hitters of spending with High Point and Winthrop, obviously. But it's good to see some of those programs keep it moving forward,
Yeah, I'll add Gardner Webb as well. I like the 2 guys they brought in. One guy, Anthony Seldon's a boomerang, I believe, despite losing Tim Kraft. So
The,
guard away.
I think they're both boomerangs.
Oh, they're both boomerangs.
Selden and who's the other guy? It's not coming to me off the top of my head. But
I'm sorry, I lost him as well, Jim.
yeah,
Jermaine
yeah,
Mann, Georgia State
Man
guy.
was at Georgia State,
Yes.
also a boomerang from or a Marfo as the
Nice
college basketball community likes to call him. I prefer boomerang. Big South had its best year last year in the history of Ken Palm's conference rankings, and it seems to only be going up.
Love the context. All right. The four-man band. What do you think Iowa State's near/long-term future looks like, Matt, in both the Big 12 and nationally?
Good, great.
Listen to the Big 12 episode. We went hard on this.
Really
it's
good.
Awesome. Yeah.
Title and Big 12 contender, in my opinion.
Yes.
His second question, he has 3. You have the ability to put together your own vanity 8-team MTE. No restrictions on who you pick. Jim, who you got? Secret, I put my top 8 teams.
Yeah, I thought about doing that. I also kind of want to do like a blue blood one, do Kansas, Kentucky, UCLA, Arizona, UConn, and then throw in like Gonzaga. And it's like, oh, Villanova's kind of blue blooded, but I don't want to see them this year. Yeah. So get out. Then you can just throw in an 8th good team of your liking, maybe make it Creighton or Auburn because they have blue in their jerseys.
There you go. Matthew?
Yeah, I threw I want to see UAB in there, a couple of like really, really good mid-high-ish major teams. I like New Mexico even, and the Mountain West. I know it gets weird to toss in that, but those 2 I wrote down, and then I put down some new first-year head coaches at power conferences like Dusty May and Darian DeVries. I just think that's a fun story arc every year. How those coaches do, major expectations, first season, and it's always higher year 1 now because you can turn the roster so quickly. So it's kind of like the spotlight and pressure cookery is on you quicker.
His third question, are there Power 5 schools who may never be good? With the new revenue share incoming, he thinks Iowa might be screwed. Men's basketball is probably the 4th on the totem pole for them, NIL money. Anyone else? Jim, the usual suspects, DePaul, Cal, Minnesota, Penn State.
The most screwed team is Boston College. I think they just have they're just like almost drawing dead. Every year they hire, it's like who can make more with less is like what their hiring standard is. And I think Grant does a fine job there, but it's just like you're never going to have the top level talent. You can win without good NIL, but you can't win consistently. Like it's just you're going to lose guys. You can't get awesome dudes every year. You got to find some gems, and those guys will probably leave if you have a good year. So it's going to be really cyclical. Seton Hall sounds like their NIL stinks. If Holloway leaves, that hurts. But BC, Matt, is the one I came back to.
Yeah, I'd go BC there too. God, I mean, like, I know DePaul is Chris Holtman, and we like Chris Holtman, but like, I don't feel like DePaul's ceiling is categorically any higher now than it always has been. We'll see though. I know they have money; they're looking to invest it, so maybe they get it turned around quickly.
The Bearcat Bunch. Who are the swing players on Cincy, Kansas State, and Texas Tech that could make any of those 3 teams enter the elite of the Big 12? Joining Baylor, Kansas, Houston, Iowa State, Zona. I've written 2 of these previews. I will run through my guys real quick. Texas Tech, Elijah Hawkins and JT Toppin are my swing players. Cincy is Dylan Mitchell and the evolution of the Thomas, Jigel James, Lukosius guard trio. And K-State, Matt, is Doug McDaniel. He is the ultimate swing piece for their success.
Yeah, I threw on CJ Frederick. Maybe he'll be healthy. Maybe he'll make 3s this year. I think he could be a game changer for Cincy. I like that Cincy team. I'm with you.
Yeah, I said Jizzle for Cincy because I think Day kind of is what he is, which is erratic and not, I don't know. Jizzle can give them a little more consistency and dynamism to go along. Like the other guys are pretty well set in their roles. Seamus, Mitchell, Aziz, Skillings. K-State also said Doug. Texas Tech also said Hawkins. So I was all on the point guards. I think those are the big swing. Those teams are pretty well set in the other departments.
Agreed. At 2 Chads, I like that Twitter handle. Is this the second best team Mark Few has ever had outside of the almost undefeated team? He says talented seniors with experience, 3-point shooting, wings, etc. Jim, I don't think so. I think it lacks
Nor do I.
NBA talent.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a nit you can pick with it. The nearly undefeated team. Oh, you can also say which one there because the 2017 team lost its last regular season game of the year, was undefeated up till then. I think he's talking about the Suggs Timmy team, and I think the Chet Holmgren team was better than this year, quite honestly.
I think the 2019 team was better with Clark and Rui and is that Corey Kispert and Zach Norvell? But yeah, I mean, The Gonzaga hype, I think,
this
is
team's really good, but I
really,
think
really good.
yeah, I think he's
Not
had
a
at least
ceiling.
3 better teams, maybe 4 or 5.
At Benu Disu, how would you feel with something similar to the NHL where players can get drafted, not forced to sign their entry contract right away, and thus allowing them to return to school for an additional year or 2, Matthew, while their NBA rights belong to the team that drafted them? Do you like this
Love
idea?
it.
Do you not like this idea?
Bridges NBA and college fans together, which I still think there's a little bit too much of a disconnect between those two fan bases in our game. I do love it. I love it. Why not? I guess there's no downside.
I can't remember. The NBA had this at one point because I remember Larry Bird was like drafted
the bird rights, whatever. Yeah,
or something like I want to say he was drafted before the Indiana State, Michigan State like epic thing going down. Like the Celtics already had his right. Maybe I'm making that up.
I can't remember from winning time. I think it was
no. So 1978 he was selected, and the 1979 game was the final between Indiana State and Michigan State. So Boston already had his rights, and he was even better the next year. I'm with Matt. I'm like kind of all for it. Why not?
I prefer to keep college. It's not a horrible solution, especially with the world of paying players, but I worry that leads to the games becoming too homogenous, i.e., the 24-second shot clock. And I know Keegan Brown wants that to happen in his AMA. I think that's totally wrong. Still, I do not think the 24-second shot clock.
Ken Palm wants it too. It's that's the one. Like Kai, I'm with you. I'll die on that hill.
You're gonna ruin the sport. You are. It's true. It sucks. Okay, Matt, a funny one. There's no real question here, but he had Sportman 2728 had a dream last night that he was in stats class at the University of Minnesota, and Matt Cox was his professor. Were you there, Matt, in his dream, teaching him stats?
Yeah, I'm in many people's dreams, Guy. I eat my haters' dreams on a nightly basis. This one was cool, though. I like to know that people are manifesting subconsciously that I'm preaching analytics.
Yes.
Good. This is a second alternative world for me. I'm very here for this.
Ryan Stagg, if you were coach of the below 5 teams, so he listed Kansas, K-State, Arkansas, UConn, Illinois, what would be your starting lineups? Jim, do you want to list yours real quick?
Kansas, Harris, Storr, Griffin, Adams, Dickinson.
Agreed.
Any disagreements?
Agreed.
Okay. UConn, probably the next, well, maybe not the next easiest one. Diarra, Mahaney. I went Jalen Stewart for some more athleticism and size, and Caravan and Samson Johnson. I think 4 of those 5 are locked. You could go solo ball instead of Stewart.
I went McNeely over Stewart.
Okay, I like that. He can shoot the lights out. Arkansas, Wagner, Nelly, Knox, Adu Tiero, and Jonas Adu.
Brazil over Tiero for me.
Okay. Kansas State.
With that guy.
Doug McDaniel, Brendan Housen, Max Jones, Coleman Hawkins, Ugana, and Yenso.
Agreed.
Chor can be your super sub for like 3 different guys.
I like a Chor off the bench as well.
Illinois, again, I just wrote this one. Boswell, Kaspers Jakusionis, Ty Rogers, Ben Hummerkaus, and Ivasic narrowly over Morris Johnson for the center spot.
Give me White over Rogers. Give me Kerry Booth.
No. I'm okay with Booth of the 5. White needs to not be starting for this basketball season.
I hate Trey White, so I don't want him out there.
I think he's way more of a 3, though. I think he does. And I was hating on the guy in the Discord, but yeah, give me him over.
That's true.
The starting line.
Yeah.
Matt, no qualms from Matthew. We can move on. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
He voiced his.
Yeah, I was peppering.
Brendan Gottschall. Does the ACC look like it might be just a little better than last year? Syracuse has been hot on the recruiting trail. Curious how the rest of the roster is shaping up. Matt, overall, I said yes. I think the ACC is improving. You still have the elite Duke up there, but Wake is better. Miami, I think, is better. Louisville's better. I think Notre Dame, Georgia Tech are better. So I think a rising tide is sort of lifting all boats in the ACC this season, Matt. I don't think it's still better than a lot of the other power leagues, but getting better.
I think it's a little better than last year. It's probably not as good as how good people thought it was. I was looking at the Ken Pom stuff today, and all those ACC teams got like a courtesy 10-point bump at the end of the year because of Clemson's run and NC State's run and Duke's run. Yeah. Like Pitt's, I think Pitt finished 30th in Ken Pom. I think they were 40th after the loss in the ACC tournament. All that said, I do think it's trending in the right direction, albeit very incremental steps and probably not at the pace of improvement that you see with the SEC or the Big East or even the Big 12.
They're at least losing the absolute Garbaggio at the bottom. And I think that's really hurt them is like, okay, you could play 4 games, 5 games a year. They're like Q4 in league
Yeah.
play. So that's gone. But it's a bad year to add Stanford, Cal, SMU. That's the kind of hurting the depth of the middle.
I kind of think SMU is really good this year, though. So maybe
I might agree with you. I took a second look at that team today.
I put SMU as okay in parentheses. That's
fair enough.
That's what I gave.
Anthony Smith, as of today, who are your 4 1 seeds for the tournament? Houston, Kansas, Duke, Alabama for me, Jim.
Houston, Kansas, UConn, Gonzaga for me.
Also good answers.
Houston, Gonzaga, Duke. I tried to find another non-UConn team, but I did go ahead and go with UConn. I wanted to say Marquette and get cute. I tried to think of a fourth, kind of a flyer,
that would be adorable
kind of
if you're
Marquette.
talking cute.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Worth noting, UConn 2 years ago, a 4 seed, despite being the best team.
No, I'm going Iowa State. Screw UConn. Your run ends.
Houston,
You
Kansas, Iowa
Kansas,
State.
right?
Wow.
I don't
No
think
Kansas
you had
either.
Kansas.
No Kansas.
No Kansas.
Yeah.
No Kansas.
So,
I
I
got
was gonna say three Big 12 is unlikely, but 2, I get it.
All right. Jake's Wake and Take. As a longtime host of a bracket pool, how do you advise we handle the 72 or 76 team expansion? Will the restructure have any impact on conference tournaments? Hopefully not. Matt, I would ignore everything until we get to the core 64. That's all that matters.
Yeah, just a big play-in tournament to the actual 64-team field, however that works. That's all I care about.
Yeah, a lot of people won't want to turn their brackets in that fast. So I think you kind of just make that a grace, whatever, take care of it. If you are in like a smaller pool with a bunch of hardos, maybe you make that the tiebreak is how well you do in those games.
Yeah, like the play-in winner, and you just can like, oh, I get any one of those 8 teams. Well, hope they win whoever gets there from that group.
CHO Talk Sports. Confidence level for Ben Johnson's job safety and Minnesota's performance this season. Jim, Ben Johnson takes.
I think he's done better than we've expected with the talent that he's gotten, but we don't love the talent that he's gotten. That's the problem. So like he's elevated a not so great roster. I think the Big Ten is going to be really flat next year. So there's a chance to rise up and compete a little bit. But if I'm just judging by rosters, I think they're bottom 4, 5 in the 18-team Big Ten. So he's going to have to elevate them a fair amount.
It sucks they lost Christie and Hawkins and Payne. I just think you got to keep like one of those dudes. It's just so hard to build momentum there at Minnesota, right? You're not Indiana. You're not Michigan. You don't have the bags on bags.
Which is why I think he's probably safe for now. The expectations,
lower bar.
I don't know what they are at Minnesota. I think the team could be good as last year, but I don't think any tournament is in the future for them this season. Brian Kervick, what are your preseason Big East first team all-conference picks? Matt, here's who I went with. Caravan, Richmond, Kalkbrenner, Cam Jones, and Eric Dixon. Your thoughts?
No Conwell?
Second. No, Conwell's on mine. No, you can have Conwell, Kai, because it's 5 plus a player of the year.
Okay,
you get 6. You get 6 people.
Okay. God, that was the exact team.
Player of the year
I had.
Is Kadari Richmond.
I had the exact team. I just had. I had Conwell / Maddox. I was trying to pick one of those two over.
If you want a board
who's
bet,
your 6th guy?
Who's better?
Yeah, Maddox won't even be better than McKnight next year. Get out of here.
Okay, we'll see. The team's gonna be good. Good team, Xavier. Congrats, to
Caravan,
Xavier.
Richmond.
You've already crowned your team a million times.
Yeah.
Xavier's going to be electric to watch because they won't play defense and they will score like crazy. Kai had the exact same picks as you. 5 guys, and then Richmond as the 6th as the player of the year.
Excellent. Smiling Platypus. Who are your top 5 teams in the Big Ten next season? This could be a little fun. Jim, who are your 5 right now? Of course, subject to change, as always.
Yep, definitely subject to change. I'm writing the Big Ten preview. I think these are the 5. I don't have an order on them yet, so I will list them in alphabetical order. I'm going to try. Indiana, Michigan, Oregon, Purdue, UCLA. That's where I've got as my top 5 right now. There's some others that can crack that for sure, but Matthew, that's where I land right now. What about you?
Yeah, God, I struggled. I had Indiana, Michigan. I put Oregon, UCLA as sort of a tied for 5th. The other 2 sandwiched in between were Ohio State and Purdue. Maryland was close for me too. I think I was high on Maryland like a month ago, and then I was like, maybe not.
You weren't I don't think you weren't in our top. I don't think you were high on Maryland, our top 50 voting.
Michigan State high?
Yeah, I'll
No.
give you an order, you little pansies. I'll give you an order
Yeah,
right now.
sorry. It is so flat. It is such a flat league. God damn it. It's such an easy cop out, but it is.
1, Purdue. 2, Indiana. 3, Oregon. 4, Michigan State. 5, UCLA. That's what I'm going with right now.
I hung out with an IU fan over the weekend who is not like a huge basketball guy, not somebody I see all the time. And he was like, "You are an idiot if you pick Indiana to win the league." Like, he's like, "You can buy all the players you want in the portal. Mike Woodson can't win the conference." I was like, "All right, I
They
just
will
gotta pick
underachieve.
which other imperfect team I'm gonna pick number one then."
It's
Picking IU ahead
Purdue.
of Purdue is walking the plank of fool me once, fool me twice, fool me every single year. But man, if that's not the case next year, tough.
Yeah.
Tough.
Ringer Young. Who has the better future, Xavier or Cincinnati? This is a really good question. I think both futures are quite bright, Matthew. Did you decide on one or are you fence writing?
I went Cincy. Just
Okay.
think the Big 12
Yeah.
Big Mo is so, but I don't know, man. That who cares? Like if you're Xavier, like you know, who cares about the football
They
thing?
care.
Like
They care.
I mean, I don't think about football, but I think in terms of their basketball, I don't think they feel like they can't keep up with Cincy. I think they can and they will, and they have historically on the hardwood at least.
Yeah. I said narrowly Xavier, but it's just awesome how equal they are. The rivalry is going to be must watch for years
Yep.
and years. I don't have any insight on who has better NIL. Like he's saying he thinks Cincinnati seems to have more. I don't know that that's the case. I feel like Xavier got better players in the portal, Kai, but since he brought more back, so who knows? I think narrowly Xavier because I like Sean Miller a lot.
Yeah, they're really close to me in next year's rankings. I might even rank them the same, to be honest, or rate them the same. Cincy, if I have to choose one, just Cincy. Okay. CB,
Oh, you remember that
yeah,
X-Men? I was
yeah.
the only one that said Xavier.
It's going to be a really good game this year. I'm excited. CBB Degen, Matt ranks Xavier 10th in our top 50, by the way. So his answer is Xavier right now, or at least for
Wait,
this year.
what?
I said he ranks Xavier 10th in our top 50 countdown.
Matt
Is
forgot
that
about
yeah? I think
defense.
fringe top 15. Yeah.
Matt
Rated him
forgot about
10th.
defense.
So
Is it 10th?
I was saying Xavier should have been your answer.
Yeah, it should have been Xavier probably. Their defense will be fine. They'll guard enough.
It won't be.
CB Degen, favorite general city / area you've traveled to for college basketball? For example, like schools clustered together. I haven't traveled enough, Matt. New Orleans Final Four, I'm biased, was the best thing ever, but it's a good question. Chicago's not a horrible city. There's not exactly great schools here. Besides, I would say Loyola's pretty good. But the driving distance is nice for a lot of Midwestern schools around here. I think the Northeast would be the best. I think in some cases you can be next to like 30 schools within driving distance. Did you have an answer for this?
I like the Northeast. I have been to Tobacco Road and done like the Durham to Chapel
That's
Hill to
probably the best
Raleigh.
answer.
Like that's I think the obvious answer, but it is pretty sweet. Like Chapel Hill is a really cool town. Like it is. It's a cool area. Raleigh's
Yeah.
cool. Research Triangle. Good vibes there.
I said sort of by default because of a place where I've actually been to. It's like that Indiana area when we did the
Mhm.
Indiana, Notre Dame, Purdue triumvirate in 3 days. But Vegas was a sneaky awesome place to live because like 12 great teams come out there for MTEs or neutral site showcases, and then you've got the tournaments at the end of the year. Living there was actually a sneaky great college basketball venue.
Love it. Danny Harold, how do you guys tier the Big East coaches? Interesting here. Jim, he did do a tier here. I'll read his tiers, and you say agreed or move up, move down. His tier 1 was the have won a national title tier, Hurley and Patino. I agreed with this tier, actually.
Yep,
Agreed
I do
with
too.
Okay. Tier 2, elite coaches without a natty, says Danny. Sean Miller, Greg McDermott, and Shaka Smart. I also agreed with this tier.
Yeah, I think he did a very good job of this, Kai, so we can keep rolling.
Tier 3A, young and promising, Kim Inglis, Shaheen Holloway. I would put these guys down with the next tier, and I think Holloway might even be a shade ahead for me in terms of the next 5.
Yeah, he went 3A, 3B. I think they're much more mushed as a true tier 3, not an A
Yes.
and B. But I get that he's, separating them in terms of classification.
Yeah.
Tier 3B was Washed, Cooley, Holtman, and Mata. Not a bad category, honestly. You have questions about all 3. And then tier 5.
like Holman more. I like Holman more. I know.
Yeah, I still kind of like Holtman. Tier 5, Matt, Booty Cheeks, Kyle Neptune.
Yep. I think that's right. It just gets crazy that Villanova, I think I feel very confident saying I think they have the worst coach in the conference. Like that's how good the Big East is now. And that's sort of how quickly, if you lose grips of the success you've had, you can kind of everything changes. The paradigm shifts pretty damn fast.
Mhm.
Yep. I haven't given up on maybe Washed yet either. I think Thad Matta is still an awesome coach. Butler just has by far like the least money of the Big East.
Yep.
Other than, I
Strapped.
guess, DePaul.
Mr. Dennis TM23. Ask this one on the first Trilly. Okay, so it's kind of a long question here, but basically, how do you evaluate coaches? Because it's tough to compare mid-major coaches that do really well and power coaches that, I guess, tend to struggle. My simple answer here, it's expectations specific to that team. Does that team have crazy talent on paper? Should they be top X in the country but finish short? Coaching's probably part of that. Negative marks. Does the team look bad on paper? Do they win anyways? Good coaching, positive on the marks. It's a simple answer, Jim, for me, but that's kind of the gist.
Yeah, part of his question was if all of college basketball started from scratch, like how many Power 5 level coaches are there? And this is where it gets tricky because I think some guys are awesome with the clipboard, like John Becker at Vermont, but I don't know if he can CEO a
Correct.
power conference program. And that's why he's still at Vermont. And I can sit there and praise him and rip on certain guys at the power conference level, but like they are almost different jobs.
Yep.
And so tough to really answer his question. I bet we wouldn't be able to fill all of the Power 5 spots, like with Power 5 CEOs and coaches where we feel good about all of them.
Yeah, it's just like who's a better coach, Becker or Ed Cooley? Like that debate doesn't even have a context that makes sense to me to dispute it. So it's just like it really is expectation driven, Kai, as you said. And I probably put too much emphasis on the X's and O's without recognizing that a lot of it is bottom line,
Well,
getting good
because
players that work with you, you know? So,
by the time we start to evaluate it, we're like, they have their roster. Are they elevating it or
right.
decreasing it? And they are responsible for that roster in large part. But yeah, like Cooley versus Becker, I don't know how Georgetown would be if they swapped because that's a big spotlight on a guy like John Becker who's just been dominating a lower league for years and years.
Yeah, aside from the Nepo hires, aka the guys that played for the school or played in the NBA, there's a reason these guys are coaching at the power level. It's because of the combination of can actually handle that large of a job and quote unquote CEO a team. So I think when we normally look at coaches, it's X's and O's, and we try to contextualize that by expectations against performance against expectations at the end of the day. Okay, Casey Telmanaga fan club says realistically, how many how many Big Ten teams can make the tourney this year? He says he can see a world with 10 to 12. Also, any mid-major sleeper teams. Whoops, I didn't see that part of the question, Jim. But yeah, I said 10 to 11 is definitely possible. It's going to be weird in general with no Pac-12. There's clearly new bids up for grabs.
Yeah, one more at large at stake, and then the Big Ten has 4 more like tournament caliber programs with UCLA, Oregon, Washington, USC. So I said 10 to 12 feels very possible. I think that is within the realm of possibility for both them and like the SEC, the Big 12 could potentially get close to double digits or actually hit 10. The mid-major sleeper teams, for me, like there's just 4 awesome teams in the Sun Belt. Like they're kind of in that middle conference. Like as you go further down to OVC, Patriot, NEC, like I don't think there's anybody you need to be really worried about there. But I think the Sun Belt and the SoCon are going to be rock solid next year.
Matthew?
I'd buy that. I think the Ivies, Jim, have a ton of good teams next year. Like people coming back. I know the roster is still sort of TBD, but for the most part, tons of continuity. And there were some good teams last year that weren't actually named Cornell, Yale, or Princeton. Teams like Brown, teams like Harvard, teams like Columbia that I think could be fun. I don't know how sleepery they are, how legit they are, but they could be fun.
Okay, we have about 5 or 6 questions left. Gabriel Ash says, can Duke get over the hump and finally cut down the nets? Well, Matt, they have the roster. Do they have the coach? What says you, Mr. Duke?
Yeah, I don't think they do. I think they get close, though. This roster is more talented than the 2022 roster that we all wax poetic about with Paolo Banchero. And they, were a fringe top team most of the year, but didn't quite get over the hump. I think they get farther this season, but eventually lose to a slightly more veteran, maybe a better coach team.
Yeah, Duke fans think they can get there. They're all certain that this is a complete world record dominatrix team. But Kai, I'm not sure Shire's that guy, pal. I just don't think he's that guy, pal.
We'll find out.
He's solid. I don't think he's going to like tear them down to being bad, but I don't know that he elevates and maximizes.
Bobby Van D22, he's going to Vegas this weekend. Needs some long shot national title picks. I had this highlighted to come back to. I didn't write any down, Jim, but I can look real quick if you have a couple.
Xavier, Oregon, two teams I think have really high upside that are further down the board. Kai, I know you love SLU, was just a fun little gamble,
Yeah,
although
why not?
that, part of that speculation was hoping that they would get Larry and Conwell and Kent and get the whole band there in St. Louis. I also this could go horribly, but I think Rutgers has really high ceiling outcome because if they have two of the best five players in the Big Ten with Bailey and Harper, they've got a little bit more shooting and the defensive foundation of Peichel in charge. I think Rutgers has a high ceiling, but they could completely miss the tournament too.
Matt, did you add any?
UAB, Grand Canyon, I think they're still undervalued in some of the future. A lot of the mid majors are undervalued in the futures markets for a pretty good reason. They don't always break through. It's a harder path to get there at large, especially, but I do think they have real upside, both those teams.
Tyler Cronin, what are your preferred NCAA tournament sizes? If more,
64.
Yeah. Yeah, the answer is 64, but 68 is fine. If they expand, all the conference winners should be out of the play-ins, in my opinion. In fact, I think the play-in 16 games is a joke that we even make those teams do that.
I was right. They just have to figure out the tourney share payout thing because right now it's like those conferences get a boost from winning the 16 seed game.
Very true.
So there should be more financial incentive to being in the round of 64, like whether you have to play a game to get there or not. And the at-large mediocrity should play into it. And those shouldn't be the same kind of win shares as winning a round of 64 game.
Agreed. Matt, do you want to weigh in? Or are you good?
I'm good.
Jeff Watner, another TCU question here. He wants to board bet TCU finishes higher in KenPom than BYU and one of K-State and Cincinnati. In my opinion, Matt,
yeah, I'm on board bet this.
Ahead, above those teams. For me, K-State, TCU, BYU are pretty close. Your thoughts?
Yeah, K-State, I think people feel like they're obviously better, but I think I'm a little more skeptical. I definitely think TCU or Cincinnati's better, and BYU I can even be convinced as well.
Yeah. TCU, I think, has some intrigue. They're a team you look at the roster, like, look at all the points per game for all my transfers.
Yep.
But they're coming from different levels. Kai said the playing against this level of competition has been a struggle for somebody like Noah Reynolds. I'm tempted to join Jeff here, but I'm not going to do it. I can't quite get on board with TCU.
He also asks, is Collins, Reynolds, Alette a top 5 backcourt in the Big 12? I do not think so.
No, you can make a case for 6th, maybe, but like the top 5 teams, Houston, Kansas, Arizona, Baylor, Iowa State, I think all have like demonstrably better backcourts.
Man, yeah, the guards in the Big 12 aren't as good as I thought, I guess, now that I look at it.
But yeah, it's like BYU,
good.
Cincinnati.
It's good. Yeah, I mean, it's good, obviously. It's not.
Okay.
It was better than the SEC. SEC has better guards, for sure. For sure.
We'll have to dive into that, Matthew. Kevin Gangler, which conference gets the most bids this year? Got to choose one, Matt. No offense.
Big 10. Okay. So annoying. They just have more teams. 18 teams. I mean, come on.
Jim?
Yes, Big 10, lack of truly elite teams helps. Like, look what happened to the Big East last year when they had 3 like elite teams. The bubble teams get a little bit of the shaft. And here's a little stat. The Big 10 has the most returning minutes of all the power conference teams by a decent-ish margin, which I think helps them win games early in the season, which is non-conference, which is when you really make your resume as a conference. So I think that all sets up well for the Big 10.
And a really strong home courts, more parity in conference. Once you've built up that non-conference cushion or margin for error, then you just beat everybody up. And just like Mountain West, right? The Mountain West model. Non-con, all right, we're all going to crush it. Okay, let's all go exchange body blows for 2 months and then get bids to the tournament. That's the recipe. That's it.
Big Ten's probably right. I'll say SEC to be different, just to be different. Brand says something about the Mountain West offseason is basically his question. And don't give me the BS that they are not a good conference. You will get none of the BS here. I think Mountain West was a great conference last season. The league, though, Jim, to me this year is very down. San Diego State is not the same strength of team. Boise, Nevada have holes. Utah State lost their coach. Colorado State lost Stevens. It's a down league comparatively.
I don't think it's that down. Hot take.
Oof.
Massive talent exodus from this league, like almost across
Yeah.
the board.
Mountain West
Yeah.
has the lowest average returning minutes in the entire country of any conference below the MAAC, the American, the SWAC per Bart Torvik. Lowest average in the entire country. Exodus is the right word. I think Kai's right. There are a lot of like stud veterans, Jaden Ledee, great Osabor, Isaiah Stevens, all these like studs left the league, and it's Jalen House. Like it's just not quite the same level. I'm not gonna say it's a bad league either, but there are compelling arguments about elevation teams when they go to the tournament and whether they have been misvalued by a lot of advanced analytics. So I do think that's something that's maybe real.
Yeah, I'm a little more bullish. I think it's a deeper in the middle. Top heavy, certainly not. I don't think it maybe has 2 tournament teams this season, but I think it's like a lot of teams. A lot of teams that are like kind of closer to the cut line than people think.
They got 6 last year. I was going to put the over under at 3, and that says 2. You can't say that it's not way worse if they're going from 6 down to 2. It is way worse than it was last year.
Yeah, maybe it's okay. No, I'll go 3. I'll go 3. But I think 4 through 7 are really close. Like NIT, CBIE, I think.
I think it'll finish with its worst Ken Palm conference rank in a while. Like
down to 9.
A long time. Yeah. Okay.
Like, will the A10 be better?
Yeah, I do think the A10 is better.
I think the
tough
A10
comparison because number of teams. A10 is good though. So yeah.
Good food for thought. Jacob Quarter. Last 2 questions, by the way. What are your expectations for the Zags this upcoming season? What would you define a successful and unsuccessful season? Matt, for me, top 5 team.
Final 4 bust.
Top 2 or 3 seed, Elite 8. That's a successful season for me. Final 4 bust for you, though. Okay.
Yeah. I think so. This landscape?
I'm going to disagree. I think Sweet 16 successful. It feels different than when they're like, we have this 1 year with Chet Holmgren, or we have this 1 year with Jalen Suggs. I don't think this team has that same kind of like, we got to go all, it's got to be this year. I'm not putting the same kind of pressure. I said, you have to win the WCC because you're by far the best team. And then Sweet 16, anything less than that is unsuccessful.
All right, last question here, and we have no reviews, so this is it. This is it for the podcast. Ethan Wright, do you think Calipari would still be at Kentucky if there were no COVID super seniors the past few years? Do you think he would have had more success if all COVID players left as originally scheduled? It's a very hard question, Jim. I don't think he lost because of the COVID stuff, but you could argue other teams utilized the super senior better and allowed them to combat Kentucky's raw talent advantage that they have had each year. It's an interesting question, but hard to answer.
Yeah, I will remind that 2 of their best 4 players, Reeves and Mitchell, were 5th-year COVID guys last year. So it's not like they ignored it completely. I mean, Reeves was unbelievable last year. You take him off that team and it looks different. So Matt, I think he's probably still gone. I don't think he has a ton extra success because of this.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think a lot of his teams were way better than. I just think they're inconsistent and they flamed out in the tournament. But many teams have also had unfortunate variants in the tournament. You could argue was his more due to youth. Yes, fair.
Yes,
but like God, he had some really good team. I mean, last year that team was awesome. Last year, like legitimately an awesome team.
But they didn't play defense all
matchup.
season. We knew they were bad defensively.
That's fair. That's fair. But like go back to like the 2020. The 2020 team, which got royally screwed by COVID, I thought that team was like way undervalued. They had some good teams. I think Kyle just kind of got, drew the short on the stick in terms of tournament draws, Kai. But
expectations of the fan base.
The highest.
Who they lose to? St. Peter's? Yeah, tough draw, that one.
Yeah, St. Peter's and Oakland. How do you get past them? They lost to St. Peter's, Matt.
Yeah,
no, I'm thinking of the 2020 was COVID. That's right. No tournament was played.
Okay. Hey, good mailbag episode. Yes, we went a little bit long, but hey, we wanted to give the each question their due. Thank you for joining us. Again, no reviews this episode. We're back next week. It's possible, we haven't discussed internally, it's also going to be a Tuesday, just given 4th of July stuff, but We will see. Could be Wednesday, could be a different day. Stay tuned on Twitter, 3MW_CBB. Till then, we will see you next time. Please do sign up for the Discord in the link to the podcast description and the YouTube description. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.